Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi everyone. We will now look at al-bay' so that we will not be in total confusion about the conception of risk sharing and profit loss sharing, because in al-bay' the most important thing is the risk-taking behavior. Right? Allah says in the Quran, وَأَهَلَ اللَّهُ الْبَيْءَ وَحَرَمُ الرِّبَا, that God has made al-bay' permissible and riba prohibited, and thus we must be able to understand al-bay' properly. So the confusion is very unfortunate. The basis of Islamic banking is al-bay', and al-bay' is based on a risk-taking behavior, because al-bay' is sale, or in a broader context, it is sale, it is trade and commercial transaction. So as I have said many times, that the entity that is doing buy and sell from the supply side is the trader, the merchant, and the merchant, they are risking their capital in order to make money, in order to earn profit. So when capital is put into al-bay', there is no guarantee that the capital will appreciate by way of profit. So there can be profitability, there can be loss. So in al-bay' we allow our capital investment to be exposed to the market condition. Unlike riba, where the riba system will guarantee capital appreciation despite whether the economy is in a recession or a depression. People are losing their jobs. It doesn't matter to the riba system, because they guarantee capital appreciation or deposit appreciation or loan appreciation by virtue of the riba. So the Quran has commanded the use of al-bay' over riba, and therefore we must be able to see what is exactly the issue here. Of course, from the philosophical point of view, we are referring to the fact that riba is zulum, riba is exploitation. Riba will make the rich richer, the poor poorer. And al-bay' is the remedy. Al-bay' is cooperation, it is justice, it is financial inclusion, and thus it should be promoted, at all costs, in order to see that Allah commandment is put into life, is put into practice. But first, we must not be confused with risk-taking and risk-sharing, because that has been the soft part of the al-bay' argumentation over riba. That always we can see that people, whenever they mention about Islamic banking, they will always refer to profit loss sharing or risk sharing without looking into the basis of Islamic banking, which is al-bay'. So in al-bay', as we know, that it is a sale, it is trade and commerce, and thus we were looking earlier that in al-bay' the merchant or the trader, they are risking their capital when they undertake the business enterprise, and that capital has no guarantee. So that risk-taking behavior is much more noble and more ethical than the risk-avoiding behavior of riba. If we want to look at the risk-taking element in al-bay', because this is where many of the Sharia advisors are lost in the oblivion when they are not able to detect where is the risk-taking in al-bay'. Al-ghulu bi-ghunni, right? So we can see al-bay', because the Sharia advisors, they are very much preoccupied with the product screening. The product must be free from riba, from gharar, from maisir, from pork, from alcohol, and then they couldn't see the risk-taking element in the al-bay'. Of course, the Sharia advisor will always refer to the sale contract to ensure that the contract is sahih or valid, and the contract screening will be done, you based on the detection of riba, gharar, maisir, and prohibited commodity. But if you look at the pillar of sale, we can see that it consists of about 4 pillars. Number 1, it is about the buyer and the seller, the counterparty who is engaged in the exchange of goods for money. So this is the buyer and the seller, and of course in contract we are referring to the buyer and seller, that Tarafain Aqdi. So they must be adults, they must be sane, because to conduct buy and sell, the people must be rational, to distinguish the bad from the good. So we don't have any issue regarding buy and selling party, because the counterparty are all rational adults. But the issue here would be the underlying asset, the mahalul aqdi, the object, the object or the subject matter of the trade, of sale. And we know very well that it is required that the price of the good must be mentioned on the spot. The goods must be halal, and at the same time, the good must belong to the merchant, right? So the merchant, before they make the sale, they will have to buy the goods from the wholesaler or from the supplier, and therefore holding ownership of the object. So the merchant is the owner, is the rightful owner of the asset, and by virtue of the ownership, the merchant also hold and carry ownership risk. So this is where many of the Sharia advisor, have not been able to see that the risk-taking element in al-bay' occur when the merchant, hold this ownership risk by virtue of, of holding ownership of the asset or commodity. So by doing that, so meaning that when the merchant is exposed to risk of ownership, so meaning that when the goods are on their possession and they are the rightful owner and they hold ownership risk, anything happening to the goods, if there is a bad economic downturn, excuse me, then the value of the good may come down and the merchant will suffer a loss, and vice versa, right? So this asset ownership or ownership risk must be, treated fairly in the pillar of akad, in the discussion and verification that the contract is sahih or not sahih. This component of ownership risk by virtue of the ownership taken over by the merchant for resale objective. So this must be properly recognized by Sharia advisory, so that this ownership risk, which is amplified in the legal maxim al-gharum bi-ghunni, is properly handled by Sharia governance to make the risk-taking element a significant parameter in the assessment of product screening, or in the undertaking of product screening. Offer and acceptance, we don't have much issue, but the issue is from the subject matter or the underlying asset that we always see to take place in a sale, and thus we must be very clear that this ownership risk or price risk must be attended very well by the Sharia advisory, Otherwise, it would be, rejecting or overlooking the most important element in sale, which is the concept of risk-taking, because this is where the contrast was made between riba and al-bay'. That al-bay', is a difficult venture because it requires the stakeholders to risk their money in order to make profit. Whereas in riba, there is no need to worry about losing money because the profit has been locked in by the contract of riba. Okay guys, thank you very much. We can discuss further about the matter. I see you again. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi.